Got a doozy of an episode of the Locked On NFL podcast coming up for you. We're recapping the Chargers win over the Raiders on Monday Night Football. We are debating who the best team in the NFL is, and we have a whole crock of information coming for you on the Tuesday Fantasy Forum here on the Locked On NFL podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On NFL podcast Tuesday here on the Locked On NFL show. Thank you so much for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. And today is Tuesday. Usually that would be me and Ross. Ross is currently fleeing from some personal matter or other. No, I'm just kidding. He traveled to New Orleans for the weekend. He's up in the air as we record this. So we got Alex Clancy coming in to sub in for us on a Tuesday. Welcome, Alex. Thank you so much for hanging out. And we are probably going to talk a little bit about the Cardinals later because we are going to debate, I guess, who we think the best team in the league is. And I think they got to be part of that conversation as the only undefeated team, which only became true after Monday Night Football, where the Raiders dropped their first one. They lost to a high-flying Chargers team that seemed pretty unstoppable. Justin Herbert was dealing. He throws 3 touchdown passes in the game. They actually got the run game going. The run game had with Austin Eckler was limping around and they had some struggles getting that run game going, but they did get it going at the end of the game as they were trying to ice it. They made a bunch of really aggressive decisions with a lead to ensure that it was iced. You could kind of feel the winds of Chargers fate magic coming in, but it never came as Brandon Staley went for it on fourth downs and really seemed hell bent on avoiding this sort of classic Chargers meltdown. I don't know. Feels like a different Chargers team.
Yeah. The Chargers have always been a team that you want to play in Madden. You know, they've got all the pieces. It's like, how have the Chargers not made a Super Bowl since early 2000s? I mean, a lot of it was Tom Brady and a lot of it was North Turner, Marty Schottenheimer, et cetera. But it seems like at this point, they've got their coach.
Not since the one against... I'm trying to think of when the last time the Chargers were in the Super Bowl, right?
Mid-90s against the 49ers when Jerry Rice had 3 touchdowns in the first half. Yeah. But they're a fun team to watch. Justin Herbert looks like the guy when everybody thought Tua was the guy in the top 6 a couple years ago. I mean, they've got all the fun spots and all the fun places. And the defense with Brandon Staley and Derwin James healthy, it's a scary bunch.
And Brandon Staley, he's going to get a ton of praise throughout the week, and deservedly so, because he has adapted what he did in the other Los Angeles team with the Rams. He adapted what he did there to this personnel, and he's got these guys humming. But also, he went for it on a 4th and 10 in kind of no man's land. Could have been a long field goal. Feels like every other Chargers coach kicks that field goal, it misses, and then that gives the other team a field position that starts their comeback. And this time he said, no, we're going for it on 4th and 10. And then they actually made it on a crossing route. I think it was Jared Cook. It was an awesome performance from the Chargers, not to neglect the Raiders, who definitely have some scrap in them, but this time it feels like the fundamental flaws of the Raiders finally caught up to them.
Yeah, and I mean, all their running backs are injured in some capacity, so if you're going to make the Raiders one-dimensional, it's obviously a little bit easier to defend, especially with the secondary that the Chargers have. Derek Carr took the first half off. I don't know if it was the defensive scheme that Staley et al. Put together. I don't know if it was the pressure, because, I mean, they had linebackers and pass rushers in the backfield the majority of the first half. Didn't really get Darren Waller involved initially. And again, with Kenyon Drake a little hobbled, Peyton Barber was out almost immediately, and Josh Jacobs hasn't been healthy for a couple weeks. If you make any team one-dimensional, unless it's Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, chances are you're going to be behind the 8 ball. We saw that in the first half, and they just couldn't recover.
Yeah, even those guys can have something like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. But
right,
look, you have Derek Carr, 2 touchdowns and a back-breaking pick at the end. Justin Herbert, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I think the story of this game, Chargers blaze out to a 21-0 lead at halftime. And then the third quarter opens with Raiders touchdown, Chargers punt, Raiders touchdown. And you're going, oh no,
Oh,
here it
no.
comes again. Here comes the Charger, the great Monday Night Football Chargersing that we always get treated to whenever the Chargers play on a primetime game, but it never came. And I think that is a credit to the run game of the Chargers. It's a credit to Brandon Staley and his decision making. But I also want to kind of focus on the offensive lines here, because on both angles, the O-lines got destroyed. Alex Leatherwood, the rookie for the Chargers, was terrible. Or for the Raiders was terrible. The Chargers right tackle, Storm Norton, old friend of my Vikings. He was on our practice squad for forever. Also a Los Angeles Wildcat alumnus. I weirdly know a lot about that guy. He's a backup right tackle because Brian Bulaga is hurt. He got worked. And it was like he gave up some really, really rough plays, especially in the run game. So it was a really tough time for both of these quarterbacks. And I think Justin Herbert is just kind of built for that kind of game. And Derek Carr very much is not.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert's a tree trunk. Like he's Josh Allen in Josh Allen's second and a half year. Like he's wise beyond his years. They were talking on the broadcast constantly about how he sees the plays at NFL speed already, and he did. There was really no learning curve for him, and his ability to be elusive in the pocket allows that. Even though there is pressure, and they did get to him a couple times, as you mentioned. He's able to withstand it and extend plays and make plays. Plus, it helps that all of his receivers seem to be over 6'5", aside from Keenan Allen. I mean, everybody's big. They're all big targets, and it makes it easy for him when he can see over the offensive line because he's a tall dude himself.
Yeah, and Austin Eckler punches in one last touchdown as the game ends, and then that's kind of it. You're going to garbage time from there. So the Chargers go to 3-1. I believe that this win puts them at the top of the division. At 1-0 in division, so a tiebreakers. Chiefs currently last in the division. That's fascinating. Maybe that's a conversation for another day, though, because I do want to talk a little bit about who we think now. There's only one undefeated team left. That's your Cardinals. Are they the best team in the league, or is it someone else? So we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah, and the interesting part about all that's going on right now, when you talk about the Cardinals, BetOnline.ag has Cliff Kingsbury as the odds-on favorite to win Coach of the Year at plus 600. When the season, right before the season started, BetOnline.ag had him at plus 750, which was fourth or fifth best, or shortest odds to get fired as the first head coach to get fired. All in all, BetOnline.ag's just got you covered with everything you need. They've got a new updated site and interface with more odds, props, contests. BetOnline, seriously, it's our favorite. They've been with us for a long time. They continue to be the number one source for everything football. Go to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with promo code Locked On. Now, the promo code's changed from the live reads we've been doing over the past couple of weeks. Go to betonline.ag for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use promo code Locked On. BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, so let's get into it. I'm super curious. You didn't even tell me before we recorded. I have no idea what your answer to this question is, so I'm just excited to ask it. Are the Cardinals the best team in football?
Right. So who's the best team in football right now? I think record-wise, you have to say the Cardinals because they're the only undefeated team. I would still say, if you're going to ask me who the best, it's the Chiefs because they have the best player in the NFL. And they have the two best position players at their position in the NFL. That's not necessarily fair because the Chiefs have lost a couple games, but I would still say that, even though if you put right now at the end of it, I'm hedging, I'd say the Cardinals because they're the only undefeated team. Yeah. What about you?
Okay, so maybe, I mean, look, I watched real close a game where Kyler Murray did a number of impossible things. And to prepare for that game, I watched his week 1 game. And every time I look over, he seems to still be doing that. Are we sure Kyler Murray isn't outplaying Patrick Mahomes right now? I haven't watched enough Chiefs. I don't know if Patrick, but I mean, he's thrown some interceptions. There's been some mistakes. There's been some problems over there. Obviously, the Chiefs defense is having a lot of trouble, and that's why they're 2-2 right now. But Kyler Murray is doing Mahomesian things. If you slapped him in a number 15 Chiefs jersey, would people notice?
I mean, not with the way he's throwing the ball this year. Like the goal for, and Bo and I talk about this a lot on Locked On Cardinals, that the goal for this year was to have the offense take a step forward and Kyler Murray's running rush attempts take a step backward. And that's exactly what's happening. He's running when the offense gives it to him, and not, or 3rd and 16 when he has to pull something out of his rear end, but it's not a focal point that directly correlates to the Cardinals scoring or not. And that's what's separating him. So your question, yeah, I mean, he's moving, put it this way, he's moving closer to Mahomes than closer to Lamar Jackson. And that's what we're seeing. That's the growth of him that made Josh Allen so great. Was early on, he was running the ball a lot because he couldn't go through his progressions. Kyler's not necessarily the same player, but he's moving more towards a passing quarterback who runs when the opportunity arises and not vice versa, which is fantastic to see, especially when they're putting up 35 points a game.
And speaking of teams putting up, 35 plus a game, we would be remiss if we had this conversation and didn't mention Buffalo. They're destroying people. They've shut out 2 teams in a month. What? That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was a college
not
team.
Exactly.
but yes.
Yeah, I mean, they have. Yeah, I mean, 2 shutouts, and those were blowouts too. I mean, those are 35-0. One of them was 40-0. I mean, that's insane. Josh Allen seems to be the exact same guy he was last year. They're cooking with Diggs and Beasley and all of the weapons that they gave him. It seems like everything in Buffalo is firing all cylinders. And yeah, they've gone. I mean, the Texans are not exactly stiff competition, but in the NFL, even the worst NFL team, I mean, those guys, a lot of those guys were first round picks way back when, or draft picks. They were all Americans in college. To just beat the brakes off of teams and to do it over and over and over again is. I mean, if you're the Bills' next opponent, you gotta be scared of that.
Yeah, for sure. And my favorite, like the way I look at it for power rankings, let me ask you, like if you're going to frame it this way, because there's so many different ways to go. Like power rankings, best team right now, team on the road, team at home. What team would you choose to win one game regardless of opponent in the NFL?
Regardless of opponent.
Yeah. One team, one game. Who do you have the most confidence in to win a game regardless of where it is against who it is?
If I really wanted to answer this, I'd have to go watch more AFC teams. I'd have to go look at the Chiefs, look at the Bills and stuff. The Cardinals are up there for me. I think the Bucks are up there for me. Mm-hmm. Even though, they lost to the Rams and then the Rams lost to the Cardinals. That's part of it. But hard to bet against Tom Brady, right? But I think the Bills have to be the answer. They're just blowing the doors off people. In terms of, or here's a better way to put it. Say you invented a neutral team. The central Nebraska gray team. And they were perfectly average at everything. They were the perfectly neutral team. Who beats that team by the most, because there's so many matchups. If you put the Bills up against the Cardinals and called that the referendum, well, maybe there's a matchup because of stylistically, maybe this is a mismatch here or whatever. And, maybe there's certain things that kind of rock, paper, scissors, and you might not get the best referendum there. But like against a neutral team, I feel like the Bills do the most against that. But I think Bucks, Rams, Cardinals are up there. Hard to bet against the Chiefs. I think there's still a few kind of candidates for that upper echelon. But this list has changed from, a month ago.
Yeah. And this is the fun part about the NFL because every year is different and every week is different. Like people talk about, momentum and all these things. Every week seems to be a different season. And that's kind of like it's kind of cliche. It's kind of
a rallying cry. You don't want to know every week. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you can bring it every single week and get lucky sometimes, like you have to, like your kicker missing a field goal at the end of the game, things like that. If you're going to win a Super Bowl, or if you're going to get deep, it was a soft sugar-coated jab. It was a soft sugar-coated memory that now we're going to put away in the nest. We're going to put it away in the nest. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
Never like things
like that's why the Cardinals are 4-0. They shouldn't be 4-0. And Kansas City probably shouldn't be 2-2. And you could say that about everybody. So when you say who the best team in the NFL is, there's luck involved in that. Is my point. Okay, that's my point. But to answer your question, I have no idea about the neutral on neutral who would win by the most points. Maybe if the Bills have a good defense, they're going to win the Super Bowl. Like they haven't had the best defense. So if they have that,
they're looking like a 1 seed.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah, and a bye and everything. And 4-0, I mean, look, we got a lot of games left, right? And probably don't stay undefeated unless we're starting to make the 72 Dolphins sweat. But in 8 weeks from now, will they still have the best record in the league? Remains to be seen and all that stuff. It is hard to argue with record, but if you were going to argue with record, you have to say, okay, well, did they get a little lucky here with the Greg Joseph missing against the Vikings, how about all these other games? Who's next on their schedule? Was that, but it's not like they played cupcakes either.
I mean, that's what the schedule looked like initially, but they kind of did. Like, I don't know what happened with Tennessee. I don't know what's happening with Jacksonville, but
Oh,
Like,
Jacksonville was the other one. God, they're
yeah,
weird. But I mean,
they're weird.
yeah, I guess. I mean, I think the Rams is a big moment for those Cardinals then.
I mean, it's everything. And I tweeted out, I got eviscerated on Twitter. I'm like, if the Cardinals win in week 4, it opens up Pandora's box to possibilities, because that was always a thing. Cardinals are going to lose twice to the Rams. They're going to split with San Francisco, and they're going to split with the Seahawks. The fact that you go on the road to SoFi Stadium and punish a Super Bowl contending team, regardless of what happens, it's opening up the oh man, that could happen. Interesting. You know, so that's the big part for them, for their future, is that, oh, they can do it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people on that Cardinals offense that are interesting fantasy options, which is among the number of things that we talked about with Marcus Mosher on the Tuesday Fantasy Forum. Excited to share that with you coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about Rock Auto. I say this, you know how parents have favorite children because it's true, and they just won't tell you. Rock Auto is my favorite live read to discuss because I need it the most. Luke, do you know anything about cars,
they've
Luke?
saved me money. Yeah.
So Rock Auto is, first of all, you don't have to go to a chain storefront and ask ma'am or mister up front as a 38-year-old man like myself, hey, where is this? I have no idea. I don't know anything about cars. I don't know where the hell anything is. Can you help me? I'd rather do it from the comfort of my own home, where I can type in a little search box. RockAuto.com has you covered. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock everything that you need. That's why go to the interwebs. Go to RockAuto.com. They're a family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. And at your fingertips, you have the whole car world at your disposal. You go into a search box, be like, hey, listen, paint man. You're probably not man. And you come down with paint, carpet, tail lamps, whatever. You pick your make and model, and it's at your door a couple days later. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain storefront or car dealership when RockAuto.com doesn't upcharge you? So whether it's for your daily driver or weekend convertible, RockAuto.com is your one-stop shop for everything you need for your car. Go to RockAuto.com, write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com.
All right, everybody, continuing on with this Tuesday episode of the Locked On NFL podcast here with Alex Clancy. And of course, it's Tuesday. That means it's the Tuesday Fantasy Forum and Marcus Mosher from Locked On Dynasty, also Locked On Cowboys. Probably a pretty happy guy right now coming to help us out. Thank you so much for joining us, Marcus.
I am a happy guy, but I'm excited to talk about some fantasy football, guys. We had a fun week 4. Luke, can we just start by talking about a former Viking? Is that the only way that we do this? By talking about
hurt me more. It can't. What's another? Sure.
I mean, I don't want to hurt you any more than I've already hurt you in the past.
You can't hurt me more than the Vikings do. Oh yeah, that was fun.
He's going to finish as like a top 10 running back this year in fantasy. It's unbelievable. Another game where he was just fantastic. 23 points in PPR leagues, 3 touchdowns. Cordarrelle Patterson is like a real thing, and he's still sitting out there in like 27% of ESPN leagues, 30% of Yahoo leagues. If he's on your waiver wire, you're spending all of your rest of your money to go get him, because he is going to be a weapon for the rest of the season.
Now, just real quick, as a baseline for you, does it piss you off that he's wide receiver / running back? Like, do these things, the little like loopholes? To
it's Taysom Hill again.
No, I love it. This is great because I really feel like there's a lot of these guys that are kind of hybrid, right? So Cordarrelle Patterson's really been a running back his whole career. It's just taken 8 years for us to actually realize it.
It took him a long time to learn how to read it. When he was in Minnesota, he admitted that punts developed too fast for him and he could only do kickoffs. And that's why he didn't do punts, because he couldn't read. So if he couldn't read punts, he couldn't read plays. 5 years later, he's learned it, but it took a lot. Credit to his coaches over the years. This
isn't like Ty Montgomery, where he was a running back that they kind of moved all around. He was a wide receiver and then he kind of fused into it. But it's fantastic to see. Absolutely.
By the way, best kickoff returner in NFL history, by the way. There's no debate about it. Just
in all of Bears history.
Of course.
In all of NFL history, but it's funnier to say really. Bears history.
There's actually no debate, but I can't wait for Bear fans to get angry with us. But there is no
debate. It's my favorite way to troll Bears fans. Okay, outside of Cordarrelle Patterson, what are we thinking about waiver wire?
Yeah, there's a couple guys that we still need to find out the situations about, right? Like David Montgomery. How long is he going to be out? Because if he's out for a while, Damian Harris is somebody that you're going to want to spend the rest of your fab budget on, your number one waiver claims. But another guy that I think is very interesting is Brandon Bolden. I know Brandon Bolden has been around forever, and it's not fun to roster Brandon Bolden. But he is somebody that did get 6 receptions for 51 yards last week. In PPR leagues, you'll take that. JJ Taylor fumbled on his first and only touch of the game, which basically means we're not going to see him probably the rest of the season. He's going to be in the doghouse. So Damian Harris doesn't do a lot in the passing game. Brandon Bolden's going to take over that James White role. Again, if you are in a PPR league and you need a flex play, you need a RB2, I think Brandon Bolden can give you some pretty solid production.
That's wild. So Ramondre Stevenson is going to could be a complete healthy scratch afterthought this year, it seems, unless another injury happens. Their 4th-round pick out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think Ramondre Stevenson and JJ Taylor are going to get real cozy together in the doghouse for Bill Belichick.
Well, and there's something that on Locked On Cardinals, Bo Brock and I, we talked about this. The Cardinals offense is taking obviously a step forward, and the Chiefs are always, the old faithful Patrick Mahomes, and you play the hits with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Is the Cardinals offense rivaling that fantasy-wise with Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes neck and neck up front? Or is it really just Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and then everybody else on the Cardinals roster?
Yeah, I kind of think it's that way. I mean, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are the number one scorers at each position. They're so steady every single week that I think you have to rank them higher. But the Cardinals are a lot of fun. I think they're going to be an offense that's very fruitful for us for fantasy for the rest of the season. But can I give you guys one more pickup, a guy that I think you have to go out and get right now? Dalton Schultz, only owned in 21% of ESPN leagues. Do you know right now he has the second most fantasy points at the tight end position behind Travis Kelce? Wow. Really, really good. He's involved in this Cowboys offense. He's playing a ton of snaps. Plus, he's kind of the guy that gets a lot of the red zone looks for Dallas. Dalton Schultz, go get him if you need some tight end production over the next couple of weeks.
That's awesome. So we are quarter-ish way through the season. Sure. It's not as clean as it used to be. This feels like a great time to talk about a buy low or two, because this is when somebody gets a slow start to the season, but they're going to turn it around and you might be able to get a buy low on somebody. Or maybe the other way around. Maybe somebody's off to a really hot start, but we don't think it's sustainable. Maybe you can sell high on them. Are there any players we should be trying to maybe shop around or shop for that you could think of?
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb is a really good one because he's gotten a ton of carries over the last 2 weeks. 22 carries in week 3, 21 carries in week 4. But if you play in a PPR league, it's 8.4 points and it's 12.5 points. And you probably used a late first-round pick, early second-round pick on Nick Chubb. You're probably getting frustrated that Kareem Hunt is the one stealing the touchdowns. But I will say the run defenses that they play later on in the year get much, much easier. I think this is a good guy to try to flip, maybe somebody like Chase Edmonds. I know Chase Edmonds is playing really well right now. Sorry, Alex. But I think long-term, you're going to want Nick Chubb. If that's a deal that you can do, I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and I do have one question. Streaming quarterbacks is a thing. A lot of times, and smart move is to draft a quarterback mid to late rounds if you can, see where you can get value late. Is there a darling of yours? Like Kirk Cousins has always been mine. He always has been, because that there's a floor you'd think not to troll.
He's good for 250 and a touchdown every game. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a darling for you this season that maybe isn't getting as much run?
It's a really good question. Kirk Cousins is the guy that I like a lot as well. But for me, the guy, Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke is fantastic for fantasy, right? 290 yards last week through the air, 3 touchdowns. And then on top of that, 43 rushing yards. Like, you're just getting an additional, basically, passing touchdown on the ground production. Taylor Heineke has some really, really easy games coming up against some soft defenses. There's just no way that they're going to go to Ryan Fitzpatrick with Heineke playing this well. I think he's a good bet.
Awesome. Marcus, thank you so much for coming by, giving us a little bit of fantasy advice. Again, you can find Marcus on the Locked On Dynasty podcast and at Marcus_Mosher on Twitter.
Tomorrow's a big day in the Locked On podcast world. It is Power Rankings Day, where the Arizona Cardinals end up, Tampa Bay, Rams, Cowboys, etc. Check it out on Twitter and elsewhere. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available on all platforms.